Like Sean is in Hawaii.
Yeah, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Shauna's Miraculous Podcast. It is February 28th, 2025, and I have returning guest and very good friend of mine, Maya Diane. Hello,
Hello.
how you doing?
Awesome. I'm happy to be here. And we made it before the last day of February. I
Oh
was even
yeah.
better.
Wow. Yeah, thanks for showing up. That this week or this month actually went by so fast.
True.
Wow, we made it just at the last moment,
Exactly.
last minute. Um, yeah, so we usually love to talk about relationships because that's one of the things that's so huge in people's lives. Um, do you want to kind of start and then, because I also
Yeah.
had this similar
See
thing.
where it goes. Yeah. So we talk about relationships with the tools of consciousness, access consciousness, and it just brings up this whole world that can be very uncomfortable for people, yet very revealing and life-changing for people who choose to dive into what a conscious relationship can be like. There's, and part of that is the constant creation of relationships. It's kind of this weird thing that we say, which is kind of obvious. It's like when you're growing a plant, you can't just ignore it and throw it in a dark room and expect it to bear fruit. And somehow, although it's obvious, we have been programmed so dynamically that all we have to do is find a relationship, do that check mark on that thing, and then we have completed, like, that part of life is complete. We've done it, kudos to us. And somehow we stop creating that relationship once it's there. Or it could be like, the moment people can be like, I don't know, playing with each other, flirting with each other. And then when it's official that they're boyfriend, girlfriend, boyfriend, boyfriend, girlfriend, girlfriend, doesn't really matter. But then some weird program comes in that the deterioration begins, or engagement, marriage, deterioration begins. So we mention all that, and yet it is to also state that it doesn't have to be that way. It does require work, it does require attention, but mentioning or bringing to our attention that that program exists doesn't mean it's the only possibility.
Yeah, I've been looking at that too on like, I guess the question is like, how can this change or, what would create something greater in a relationship? Because, when you were saying that, when people choose a relationship, they'll just be like, okay, done, mark, check that box. But it's like, then where does that person go and where does the other person go? But you're still in that relationship. It's almost like you buy uh an object or like a chair. And it's funny because this gets into almost like male female because like sometimes women feel so objectified, but it's like, well, who, like, in so many ways, how do we objectify the relationship itself, where it's like, oh, we have this and now that's done. And then I when this is because I don't really look into it too much or use the word too much, but is that where maybe we also started with some sort of narcissism, where it's like, if there's a person who, when two people are in a relationship and they're like, okay, I've got this, now I'm going to go forward and do whatever I want, regardless of my partner. And then that's kind of like you leave someone hanging because they're like maybe in love and they're like following you around and it's, or whoever. And then it's like, um, maybe that how that develops because it's they're treating the person or the relationship as an object. I don't know. That's one thing that maybe came up, but I have no
Mm-hmm.
idea what narcissism is. Just kidding.
Yeah, I would say that, again, to talk about, although there's a lot of programs when it comes to relationships, and most of them are not cognitive, and most of them, until you start exploring and investigating what's going on, you're like completely lost. One of the greatest things in Access is that we make sure that we get to the most clarity and the most lightness when we're dealing with something, because if we're trying to change something and we're off energetically, we're off with the exact wording, the exact topic, then we're kind of just running around in circles, which could be a great example with the narcissism, because I could be dealing with supposedly narcissism and then I'm off energetically, so I'm getting nowhere with changing it, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
obviously we're not doing it now, but that's a great example of like if I would be in a class with a facilitator with Access or doing a session with an Access facilitator, first thing is getting to that clear, accurate energy of what we're dealing with here.
Okay, so now that you've said that, like, this is so funny because the awareness came up. So I was looking at a relationship and there was something heavy and it was like not, there was like a lot of weirdness. And I was like, okay, what is this? And I was like angry, like there's this immense anger. And I was like, okay, there's a lie somewhere. So I was like, okay, what is the lie? And what came up is that, so the lie is that they like me. And I was
Mm.
like, "Oh, so this person doesn't like me?" And that just the whole world just opened up. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then when you're in that relationship, it's not like I'm gonna be like, "Oh, you," because if I bring that up and say, confront the person and say, "You don't like me," then it's just not gonna work because they don't even know.
No.
They think they like me because they must, because we're, friends or, dating or relationship or whatever it is that people decide to do. So with that awareness, it's like, and then, so another thing is that can you love somebody else when you don't love yourself or like yourself? Can you like somebody if you don't like yourself?
Exactly, which is part of that consciousness exploration. Because even with what you said before, like with the narcissism part, like the first thing that came to mind was like that so many of us grew up with that sense of wrongness for a million reasons. And then, you're just seeking to finally do something right or get something right in this reality. So there's not like an ill intent with choosing that, if that makes sense. So nobody's wrong in the situation. And we have this wonderful hashtag, it's not personal in Access, which is sometimes very hard to swallow that pill, but 99% of the time, it's totally not personal. And the more we grow allowance with ourselves in ourselves, the more we grow allowance to discovering those situations with the other person who doesn't really like themselves, therefore having a great deal of issues with liking me. And again, like if there's willingness to be more conscious and more aware, then how much can we water all of those situations and nurture it into something different? So there's also this point of like, we can get angry and start separating when we discover all these things are there, or we could see like, okay, can I change it? If so, how can I change it? And sometimes the answer to can I change it is no, which
Mhm.
is fine, but it is that process of moving from reaction to action, and that's like a lifetime, a work for a lifetime.
Uh, oh yeah, by the way, I just wanted to give a shout out to your pink shirt for the anti-bullying. Uh, it's like, so on the 26th, everyone wore a pink shirt because it's anti-bullying. And mine has hues of pink, but it's not quite pink. So mine's more purple. But I like your shirt and
Oh, that's awesome.
yay,
Me and my
anti-bullying.
daughter were laughing about that, but
Yeah, I know, I get it. Yeah. Yeah. And then everyone was pink at work. Yay. Yeah. Um, oh, so I know I what I love about a conscious relationship, whether I mean there's a lot or a little, or one person's more conscious and the other person's like maybe doesn't even has never had that conversation.
Mhm.
What I love about it is that when you're asking questions and looking to explore and getting awareness, then you're at least looking and asking that question, can this change? Because as you said that, I was like, oh, so I looked at this, asked the question, I was like, oh, it can change. So that's, sometimes there's a bit of like fun and hope in that where it's like, okay, so then what's required? Um, so I decided to quickly look up narcissism,
Mhm.
but in the 1828 dictionary, it's not there. Only narcissist comes up, but in the like new age, basically narcissism is a personality trait characterized by an excessive focus on oneself and one's need, often at the expense of others. I mean, I did know that, but it's like sometimes my brain can never compute like that label and definition. But and then as you were talking again as well, it's like what was I bringing up earlier? Oh, choosing the relationship or choosing what works for you and like creating a good relationship, but also not giving up or giving in or being like, oh, if this person doesn't communicate that way or talk or call or text as much as I want, then I'm just gonna not do it at all. You know, it's like creating like assuming and creating this just what you think is easier, but it doesn't work at all. So it's like, how do you actually choose what works and know how to choose, yeah, what works for you, basically.
I love how we tackle things that started in what year did you say?
28.
1828 in 29 minutes. So, yay, us. Like, even when you read that definition, there was a sense of without all the charge, without all the extra meaning that we put on it, there's actually nothing wrong, quote unquote, with that definition. Actually, as Gary Douglas teaches us, everything is the opposite of what it appears to be, and nothing is the opposite of what it appears to be, because we got into an era where we tried to take care of everybody else's needs, wants, desires, requires to a degree that we don't know ourselves. We don't know what we desire. We don't know what we need. We don't even know how to treat ourselves with regards, which also leads to relationships where we don't know how to treat the other with regard. So
Yeah.
somehow selfishness kind of has been flipped. Like, so when we are infants, toddlers, we actually are naturally only looking at our needs. And when we start getting attacked about that from parents, caretakers, educators, that's not okay, something gets twisted in our world, that we stop doing that, but actually pay the price years later. Again, nothing is right, nothing is wrong about it. It's all these unseen programs that we started talking about at the beginning. And if we choose a life of becoming more aware, becoming more consciousness, then we start unraveling all those threads that lead to a lot more ease. And it doesn't even matter what kind of relationship it is. It could be with coworkers, it could be romantic, it could be family members, friends, anything. All of it can become easier the more clarity we have with ourselves. And before, when you were talking about how you got to the lightness with them not liking you, that's part of the weird thing that I talk about with facilitation with access. Is because we get to lightness no matter what it is. Like, it could sound very bizarre to someone who didn't encounter the tools yet, that the light thing is supposedly a negative thing.
Oh, yeah.
But it's actually doesn't matter if it's negative or positive. It's that when it matches the energy, that's where we can start unraveling that thread of awareness and actually seeing what we're facing and how we can change it.
Well, what is cool is that earlier you said it's not personal, but in like it's so easy for people to be like, oh, like they don't like me, but it could be also the opposite. But let's not get into that. Anyways, so okay, so but like when you said it's not personal, it's like really cool because like you said, so the lightness is okay, this person doesn't like me. But then when you look at it, because I did not take it personal at all, because I was like, hey, do they like themselves? How do they communicate? What does this relationship look like? Are they actually nice to me? Yeah, yeah, they are. They can be, but there's a little bit of crunchiness. But I'm like, what's going on? Because there's all this like weird energy. There's a bit of anger. There's a bit of just weirdness coming up. I'm like, hey, what is this? And then I was like, so the question I asked is, what is the lie? Because when you're angry, there's a lie attached. And then what came up was, they like you. And I was like, and at first you think, oh, they like me, but the lie is that they like you. And I was like, they don't like me. So, but, and I wasn't insulted at all. So it's just very interesting. But, so a question that I kind of have is, because we are talking about consciousness as well. So it's like, what are some questions that people could ask to be more conscious or gain more consciousness? Because for me, sometimes I'll ask, what is required of me? But like,
Mhm.
are there any questions that we could share with listeners where it's like, because someone might be like, well, then how do I be conscious? Or what is consciousness?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely something that you just start exploring. If you're interested in and curious about, you can go to accessconsciousness.com and start with the books. There's like Divorceless Relationship. There's a book called Relationship, Are You Sure You Want One? Um,
There is, I got this right beside me. I got like 5 or 6 of these little books. Oh,
Another one, yeah, sex is, if you put it over your head, it makes it, oh, your magic. Somehow it's not working. Sex is not a
it-
four-letter word, but relationship oftentimes is. So Gary Douglas and Dr. Dane here give a very different perspective about relationship. For me personally, created a lot of freedom, a lot of curiosity, and a lot of interested to learn more. And I would say that if you're listening to stuff like our podcast, you are interested in more. So just know that it's a journey and it's not a one-off, like, oh, I make this choice, kind of like we were talking about relationships. It's not just one thing. You dive in there and you keep learning more about yourself, more about relationships, more about being with another person. And it could be an amazing adventure of growth. Like sometimes we're kind of intimidated in seeing the ugly, or seeing things that we didn't want to see that we function from, but actually every time we confront one of those things, we actually get to more freedom and just a clearer, easier life. So it can be the scariest and boldest move that someone will choose, to choose more consciousness in their life, but the the further you go with it, the more space and ease you have, I would say.
wow, that's cool. Yeah, like, again, it's not necessarily giving up. It's kind of like looking at what can be more fun or what can be created and what consciousness could be. Like the exploration of consciousness could be asking questions. And then, like you said, being willing to see the good, the bad, the ugly. But like the bad and the ugly doesn't have to be upsetting, awful, terrible. It could be like, oh, okay, like this is just what it is.
Right.
Um, but yeah, thanks for sharing that. Shall we, do you think we should wrap it up, or should we fry people even more?
I had one thread, but it kind of went away. So maybe.
Oh, do you have the thread still? Yeah, for me it's kind of like the refresher of just like exploring the relationship to see if things can change.
Yeah, totally. Uh yeah, every time we go to like this place, like you said, of giving up or getting angry, we can start with the awareness that everything that is heavy, there's a lie there. So if we even just start exploring that, okay, I'm going to heaviness, I'm going to feelings, I'm going to wrongness, then I'm on the wrong path. So the first course correct is like, what is light here? What is true here? And even if it's something like Shauna demonstrated of like, oh, they don't actually like me. How does it get any better than that? Oh, they don't like them, or probably nobody ever taught them to like themselves. What can I be for them? What difference am I for them, that's why they're drawn to me? Like how much even just you having the tools and practicing the tools for so many years creates this magnetic attraction for people to be like, oh, what is this? Nobody ever showed me this is possible in life. So
Yeah.
that's where we're the gift, whether we are in relationship with this person or not. We're just
Oh, yeah.
showing a different possibility that nobody else showed them.
That's cool. And that's a different space. And oh my God, there's this person that like it's very rare, like for me, where I see somebody like really, really like me and like just want to hang out. And I'm just like, whoa. So the other day this happened and it was so refreshing because I was like, I think this person actually might be able to see me and see me for who I am and like genuinely likes me. Nothing overboard, but I was like, wow, this is so cool. Like, what would it take to have more of this show up in my life? And it's like, I mean, I could ask more questions about it, because that never really happens to me in that perspective. But oh, and Kate, I don't know if you've seen that post out there of Gary saying something like, if you know the life you'd like to live, why aren't you choosing it? Did
Mhm.
you see that?
Yep.
Okay. I saw that and I was like, good point. Because I'm like, I mean, I think I can envision the life that I would like to have, but then it's like, oh, am I choosing it? You know? So just those small little posts out there is something that can like totally change like my life at least.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where the programs kick in. And again, it's changeable. It's like we bring up all these things that exist out there, kind of like what you were saying. And I talked about before that, oh, initially, a lot of times when, we meet another and there's this like spark, it's like we see the potential, we see the being, we see something wonderful going on. And then the programs start kicking in, which it's part of consciousness. It's like, oh, okay, I can acknowledge that they grew up with this thing. I grew up with this thing. Like nothing is perfect, and we both have to have some kind of desire to be different with things or choose beyond that in order to have that ongoing growth. Like otherwise, it's like, oh, check, yay, we're in a relationship. Now we can kick in the autopilot because we succeeded. We found the thing we're supposed to have here, and we can start neglecting that.
It's like we succeeded for a day and a moment, and yeah, what next? But it's not even what next. It's kind of like, well, I'm off to work today. Thanks for making breakfast, if they say thanks.
Yeah. And then choice comes in because it can be wonderful and it can be filled with gratitude and it can be filled with growth and it can be nurturing. And it's just a matter of choosing it and to keep choosing it, like to keep looking into it and exploring it and knowing that it's something that you need to nurture.
Wow, that's, yep, such a great energy.
Cool. And one question I guess we can end with today is if you are in a relationship, you can every day wake up and ask, okay, am I still choosing this relationship today?
Wow.
And even just that reminder of like that it's a choice and that you are actively choosing the relationship can maybe choose one automatic response that you were about to be like, "Rah, rah, rah," like so do I want to choose this person again today?
Oh, okay. So I have one thing that we can kind of like clear or help people with because this came up a lot this past couple of days. So, how many people either left the relationship or their partner left, but it's been over for whether it's a day, a month, or you're getting over it and you've broken up, but how many people are actually still choosing it even though they've been broken up for a year or longer or lifetimes?
Yeah, and even that we can change with the tools of consciousness.
So, for people who would actually like to let go, it could be consciously letting go. And should we use the clearing statement?
Yeah.
Okay, so everything that doesn't allow that for everyone to let go of their past relationships that they left or the other person left, let's destroy and uncreate that all times a godzillion. Right and wrong, good and bad, PON and POC, all 100, shorts, boys, poveds, creation, species, and beyonds.
Yay.
It feels like never mind. But hopefully that helps somebody. um, well, and just one more thing with consciously letting go. uh, Sometimes you literally consciously have to say, okay, I'm letting go.
Mm,
That could be the first step.
yeah.
Whew. Well, thank you for joining. I'm so grateful for you. It's always so much fun to chat with you. I look forward to our next conversation. And yeah, I hope you have a good day.
You too. Thanks, Shana.
Yeah, thanks, Maya. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.